Welcome back, everybody, to the Set 6 review of what I think now are the best actions and songs that I'm going to be putting into my cube. So thanks for so much for following along on this, but today we're going to be talking about specifically just the top 10. I've got the rest of them pulled up here, and there are going to be great cards that I cannot wait to add to the cube, but I had to narrow it down to my top 10 out of 29. So just going down the list, prepare your bot. I think Lucky Dime is still one of the best items in my cube, especially with a lot of the creatures that you are going to play larger creatures with more questing ability. So prepare your bot being able to ready up the item, or I think Mouse Armor as well, the one that taps to give your creatures resist +1, being able to activate that twice on your characters is just very good for one ink, and it's not the end of the world. I don't think the Ready Chosen robot character is going to be as valuable yet. I'm not putting that many robot characters. That's not going to be an archetype right now in the cube. So right now it's just going to be the main feature of you get to ready an item for only one ink. Rescue Rangers Away, I think is going to be a phenomenal removal piece for the low curve decks, where you want to spew out either your Dalmatians or your Piglet Pirate, a bunch of characters of the Madrigals, where you care about having a lot of characters out early. This is another resource that you're going to be able to have, and it does not force you to use up your cheap characters as cannon fodder to take down their one giant bodyguard or something like that. I think one of the biggest advantages in this game, as people are going to probably see, is when you can get rid of creatures without having to use your creatures. As that's very good, because that's one of the biggest decision points right now in the game, is to quest or challenge or use an ability of a creature. When and why are you doing that? So this card giving your cheap creatures a way to kind of theoretically support up each other and not even lose a creature, but rather just destroy one of theirs, and then you can quest with all of them safely again. Awesome piece of removal for the cheap deck. Sail the Azurite Sea. So I think, once again, some of my top 10 cards in the game were the cards that allowed you to ramp very quickly. The ones from Trouble Brewing, the Ursula game. And the fact that you get to, this card is the equivalent of Explore. You get to draw a card, play an additional card of legal cards that you could choose from. So it's not like the pen or the quill that you can put any card from your hand, but it has to be a legal inkable card. But anything that allows you to ramp, especially in cube, is going to be very important, because you are going to play with a lot more 7-8 drop cards in cube. Twinfire. Now, this is specifically helping the discard archetype in my cube, the Sheriff of Nottingham. Specifically, I gave support to that combo because I think it's a cool combo for players to find. And so Twinfire is another card that is going to give you discard outlets. And this is dealing 2 damage, discard a card, deal an additional 2 damage to another character. I think that's awesome in this game, and specifically for my archetype. You Came Back. I really do think this has the potential to be the strongest action card that I'm going to talk about, only because of the it's not limited to color identities in my cube. When you draft, you can take any color, and you just have to assemble a deck of all the different colors you've picked. And so there are many ways that you can break this card, because there are plenty of cards that I've put in the cube intentionally that say ready chosen characters, they can't quest this turn, but I don't care, because I'm just trying to use their activated ability. Tap them, draw 3, like the new Yzma that I talked about in the character video. This is awesome. And there are plenty of cards that say win this quests, like the Robin Hood or Prince Naveen, when he enters the battlefield, play something for free. It's like, oh, this is a great card that readies up one of my characters, either that quests for a lot, or is singing a song intentionally, or I need to challenge again. This is another great piece to those puzzles of readying without any limitations. Actually, it's the best one right now. Ambush. Ambush is very similar to what we just saw Rescue Rangers Away. It's a little bit different. It's just you're going to tap one of your characters to deal damage to another chosen character. And so it's not as good for your low curve decks because your characters are probably only going to be one or two. But this is kind of the flip. When you save up, and you have this boss monster now that has 5-6 attack, you don't want to have to throw it into cheap creatures like Hey that are going to ping and chip away at it, and it feels bad. This is a way for you to deal with something that they have outside of challenging, and without putting any damage on your creature and your character. So I think this is going to be sweet. I think if you pass this, that's also totally fine. There are other ways when you're starting to get to the 3, 4, and 5 to just straight up get rid of characters outside of challenging. So I'm not dead set, but I do think this is one of the top 10 cards out of this new set that I would draft. Hot Potato. This is a braid, a little bit worse a braid, where you get. But the important part here is that you get to choose one. It's modal. It's deal 2 damage or banish chosen item. In a regular constructed play, that may not feel as good especially for 3. And I can totally understand why, is because there are more efficient removal spells, removal actions, and there's other things you want to do on your third turn. But in Cube, when you only get one card, every card's going to matter. And the fact that this card gives you 2 different options, both of which you very much want to do, this is going to be a phenomenal card. And I think this is going to be my favorite card from this set, only because of how versatile it is in Cube. I Won't Give In. Now we're getting to the 3 songs that really stood out to me. Return a character card with cost 2 or less from your discard to your hand. I think this is phenomenal. Once again, there's a lot of support that I'm adding to this cube for the cheap interactive creatures and characters. Forgive me for all of that. And so now that you're able to sing this song or just play it and start returning cards from your discard back to your hand, that is super good, especially if you have Ursula. Ursula being able to sing songs twice is awesome, and so be able to get extra card advantage on that. That's where I'm thinking with this card, is how can I build a cube deck around playing cheap creatures, either banishing them to do something to my opponent, banishing them to get some sort of card advantage, and then returning them back to my hand. Super great, because there's not that much recursion in my cube, and this is a great piece of recursion, especially for the cheap creatures. The islands I pulled from the sea. Search your deck for a location card, reveal that card to all players, and put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. I love it. I think this card is going to be great, especially with the increase in how good locations are going to get. The locations are already starting to get better, and I'll talk about that in a separate video, but I genuinely think a tutor, something that searches your entire deck for a specific card, if you draft a location card, the dwarves mine, or something that really matters, or the bayou for the discard deck, and you really want another card that's going to be able to search it out for you and find it faster, this is it. This is your song. This is like having a second copy of your location that you really want in your deck. And finally, I'm Still Here. Chosen character gains resist +2 until the start of your next turn. Draw a card. I didn't really I didn't think about this card too much, and then I played with it a little bit, and being able to play this card, giving resist, I really can't emphasize how good resist is, and resist anything more than 1. Resist 2, and you get to draw a card was phenomenal just playing around with it, because once again, there are plenty of mid-range to smaller creatures that will probably die because they only get 1 health or 2 health. But you want them to stay around, and you need to challenge other characters. This is a sweet way that's kind of like a removal spell. You can either pump your creature up, or you can give them resist to chip away at bigger things. And the fact that you also get to draw a card, there almost feels like no downside to this, that you get a very powerful stat of resist +2 till the start of your next turn. So they, even if you just need it to quest with one of your characters to give it this defensive barrier, then that is going to secure a lot of damage off of your character. And then, of course, once again, drawing with it is super good. Those are my top 10 actions and songs for the cube. I would love to know more. Some of the honorable mentions, though, are like Helping Hand. I think support is something that I'm not a huge fan of, and mostly because I feel like there's already a lot of decisions. And but support is something that I'm learning and I want to introduce more into my cube, because I do think it is very powerful, especially with something like Helping Hand, which is only a 1 cost. It gives your creatures that you definitely don't want to swing with the ability to safely quest, give their strength over to another character, and let that character deal with all of the attacking. I do not think cards like Good Job and Thievery are going to make it into my cube, mostly because you only get 1 copy of things. So there's not a whole lot of ways that we can abuse these two cards. And while Thievery can swing games, I'm not questioning that. It is a net 2 lore difference. It's not a card that is worth taking something else out. But I do want to talk just for a second on Mosquito Bite, because while we are getting into the world of resist +2 and other resist options, I really do think anything that is just moving damage along, and it's not specifically saying deal damage, but rather just something you put a damage counter on a chosen character, are going to be very good. So I'm excited to test around with Mosquito Bite, see if it's a card that I end up liking, because there are many cards that say, hey, your opponent's character has to already be damaged in order for this card to be any use to you. And so a lot of times they have their resist, or they have some sort of bodyguard that you have to get around first. And so the Mosquito Bite being able to get around a lot of those things, because it's not dealing damage, it's just putting a damage counter on a chosen character, gets around a lot of the damage prevention. So I'm excited to see it. I want to play with it in my cube. And yeah, I think that was definitely a great honorable mention. And then I don't think there are too many. I'd love to know if I've missed something and why. We Could Be Immortals is a good card. I think it's going to be phenomenal and constructed. Resist +6 is nuts. That means you, depending on how many characters you and your opponent have out on the board, you could wipe out your opponent's board without losing anything. And then additionally, then put this card into your Inkwell face down and exerted. You're already seeing that they're taking that language from the the Ursula challenge game, and they're putting it onto cards. I already thought that's a reason why a lot of those cards that are not official cards are in my cube, because they have this text. Then put this card into your Inkwell face down and exerted. So while I don't quite have the inventor support yet, because there's just physically not enough inventors to make an archetype around it, I do really think this card's going to come into my cube probably in the next 2 or 3 sets, depending on how they print things. And yeah, and then right now, Bend to My Will and Energy Blast, they will both go into my set. There are cards that are going to make them cheaper. There are ways to do that, but they didn't feel like they needed to be in my top 10 cards, just because you have to have a little bit more effort with them. They're not intrinsically insane or even all that amazing on their own. So thank you so much for watching. I appreciate it, everyone.